Imagine unlocking a method to preserve your food for years without losing its nutritional value or taste. Welcome to the world of freeze-drying, a game-changer in the realm of food preservation. Freeze-drying, also known as lyophilization, is a process that removes moisture from food, allowing it to be stored for an incredibly long time while retaining its original texture and nutritional content. This is the same process used by NASA to prepare food for astronauts. But don't worry, you won't need a rocket ship to do this at home. The benefits of freeze-drying are truly impressive. Firstly, freeze-dried foods can last for years. Yes, you heard it right, years. Imagine having a stash of your favorite fruits available at any time, regardless of the season. Or what about those delicious homemade meals that you can enjoy months later, as if they were freshly cooked? That's the magic of freeze-drying. Secondly, unlike other food preservation methods, freeze-drying maintains the nutritional content of the food. Essential vitamins and minerals are preserved, making freeze-dried food not just long-lasting, but healthy too. Plus, it maintains the original shape and texture of the food, so your freeze-dried strawberries won't end up looking like raisins. Thirdly, freeze-drying offers convenience. Freeze-dried foods are lightweight and easy to store, making them perfect for anything from a quick snack to emergency food supplies. And the best part, you can do all of this in the comfort of your own home. So, how does it work? The process involves 3 steps: freezing the food, creating a vacuum to remove the moisture, and then slowly warming it to allow the ice to sublimate or transition directly from solid to gas. This leaves behind food that is dry, lightweight, and ready for long-term storage. Now, isn't that an exciting prospect? Let's delve into the science of it all. At its core, freeze-drying is a fascinating interplay of temperature, pressure, and time. It's a process that transforms water directly from a solid state to a gaseous state, bypassing the liquid phase entirely. This might sound like a magic trick, but it's simply science at work. So, how does freeze-drying work? Let's break it down. First, we start with freezing. The food is rapidly frozen, which preserves its structure and locks in the nutrients. This is where temperature comes into play. The colder we can get the food, the better the freeze-drying process will be. Next comes the primary drying phase. And here's where it gets really interesting. Under a high vacuum, the frozen water in the food sublimates directly to vapor. That's right. It goes from ice to vapor without ever becoming a liquid. This vacuum pressure also helps to preserve the food's original shape and structure, keeping it as close to its fresh state as possible. Then, we move to the secondary drying phase, which removes any remaining moisture from the food. At this stage, the temperature is gradually raised while maintaining the vacuum. This ensures any bound water molecules, those that didn't sublimate in the primary phase, are effectively removed. And voila, we have freeze-dried food. But why go through all this trouble? Well, freeze-drying has some clear advantages over traditional preservation methods. It retains nearly all the food's nutrients, something that canning or dehydrating struggles to do. It also significantly extends the food's shelf life, with some freeze-dried foods lasting up to 25 years. Plus, it preserves the original shape and texture of the food, so when you rehydrate it, you're getting something very close to fresh. So the science of freeze-drying is really about managing these 3 elements: temperature, pressure, and time. By controlling these variables, we can create a method of food preservation that is truly remarkable. Armed with this understanding, we are ready to create our own freeze-drying station at home. Let's dive into the details of setting up your freeze-drying station in the next segment. Setting up your home freeze-drying station is a significant step towards preserving your favorite foods for the long haul. Now, let's dive into the core equipment you'll need to get started. At the heart of your setup is the freeze dryer itself. This isn't your average kitchen appliance. It's a specialized piece of equipment designed to freeze the food, create a vacuum, and then slowly warm the food to remove the ice in a process called sublimation. Next, you'll need a vacuum pump. The vacuum pump is critical to creating the low-pressure environment needed for freeze-drying. This pump works in tandem with the freeze dryer to ensure that all moisture is effectively removed from your food. Then we have our food trays or containers. These are where you'll place the food that you want to freeze dry. They should be durable, preferably stainless steel, and designed to fit inside your freeze dryer, Now, sourcing this equipment can be as easy as purchasing a ready-made freeze-drying setup from a reputable supplier. But if you're more of a DIY enthusiast, you can also build your own setup. Just remember, safety is paramount. Make sure your DIY freeze dryer is built to handle the extreme conditions of the freeze drying process. Once you've got your equipment, it's time for assembly. Start by positioning your freeze dryer on a sturdy, level surface. Next, connect the vacuum pump to your freeze dryer following the manufacturer's instructions. Make sure all connections are secure and the pump is well ventilated. Now, place your food trays inside the freeze dryer. Ensure they're evenly spaced to allow for proper air circulation. Close the door securely and you're all set. Remember, it's critical to follow the manufacturer's guidelines for safe and effective operation of your freeze-drying equipment. Also, don't forget the importance of a clean, well-organized workspace. Your freeze-drying station should be kept clean and clutter-free to prevent any contamination of your food. With our station ready, it's time to move on to the actual freeze-drying process. Freeze-drying might sound complex, but with the right process and techniques, it's a breeze. Dive into this fascinating world by first choosing the food you want to freeze-dry. Almost any food can be freeze-dried, but some are more suited to the process than others. Fruits and vegetables work exceptionally well, as do cooked meats. When preparing your food, keep in mind that smaller, evenly sized pieces will dry more consistently. Next, arrange your food on the trays. Here's a pro tip: don't overload your trays. Leaving some space between the food pieces allows for better airflow and more even freeze-drying. You'll also want to ensure that the food is frozen solid before you start the freeze-drying process. Now we're ready to load these trays into the freeze dryer. Slide them in, close the door, and we're off to the races. The freeze dryer will first freeze the food even further, and then create a vacuum around it. This is where the magic happens. The water in the food sublimates or changes directly from ice to vapor, bypassing the liquid stage. This process preserves the food's structure, nutritional content, and flavor, while making it lightweight and long-lasting. During the drying cycle, you'll want to keep an eye on the process but avoid opening the freeze dryer. This can let in moisture and disrupt the vacuum, prolonging the drying time. Most freeze dryers will have a window or a screen that allows you to monitor the process. Once the freeze drying cycle is complete, it's time to test. Take a piece of food out and let it thaw. If it turns black, it's not fully dried. If it remains the same color, congratulations, you've successfully freeze-dried your food. Store your freeze-dried food in airtight containers away from light and heat. When properly stored, freeze-dried food can last for years while maintaining its nutritional value and taste. Remember, patience is key in freeze-drying. It's a slow process, but the result is worth the wait. So, there you have it. A comprehensive guide to freeze-drying food at home. We've learned about the science behind freeze-drying, the equipment you'll need, and the step-by-step process to follow. We've even got some expert tips and best practices under our belts. Let's take a moment to reflect on the benefits we've discussed. Freeze-drying at home offers a long shelf life for your food, retains the nutrients, and is incredibly convenient. Imagine being able to enjoy your favorite fruits and vegetables all year round, regardless of the season. Or consider the peace of mind that comes with having a stockpile of food that's ready to eat, whether that's for a camping trip, an emergency, or just a busy weeknight. If you're feeling inspired to start freeze-drying your own food, you don't have to do it alone. There are plenty of resources available to help you on your journey. You can find freeze dryers and other necessary equipment online or at your local appliance store. And if you run into any challenges, there are countless online forums and communities where you can ask questions and share advice with fellow home freeze dryers. Remember, it's okay to start small. Try freeze drying a batch of berries or slices of apple. As you get more comfortable with the process, you can start experimenting with different types of food and meals. And who knows, you might even find yourself creating your own unique freeze-dried recipes. And lastly, we want to hear from you. Have you tried freeze-drying food at home? What was your experience like? Do you have any tips or tricks to share? Or maybe you're still deciding whether to give it a try and have some questions. Either way, we invite you to share in the comments below. Your feedback and insights not only help us create better content, but they also contribute to a community of home cooks and food enthusiasts, all learning and growing together. Thank you for tuning in. We invite you to embark on this freeze-drying journey and share your experiences